First do the we'll first sing the Jai Radha Madhava prayers. Is anyone willing to volunteer to sing this song, please?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Thank you very much. Dandot Pranam Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Radha Giridhari Bhagwan ki Jai
Jai
Radha Giridhari Bhagwan Jai Jagannath Baldeva Subhadra Maya ki Jai Jai Shri Bhagwan Jai Shri Panchatattva Bhagwan ki Jai Shri Guru Nitai Jai Shri Guru Parampara ki Jai Jai Shri Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Gaur Premanandi
Hare Bol
assembled devotees Hare Krishna
Hare
all
Krishna
assembled devotees Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna
all assembled devotees Hare Krishna
Hare
all
Krishna
glories to Guru and Gauranga all glories to Srila Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Let's move on from there. So we start first with speaking a little bit from the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. We were in the section Breaking Ground. I'll just go to the screen. Move away from where I was. Placed it at the right place, but it's moved. I think this is where we were in the Lilamrita. So sometimes young men would come with scholarly pretensions to test the Swami's knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So can everyone see my screen?
Yes, Mataji, we can see.
Thank you. Okay. Sometimes young men would come with scholarly pretensions to test the Swami's knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. You have read the Gita, Prabhupada would say. So what is your conclusion? If you claim to know the Gita, then you should know the conclusion that Krishna is presenting. But most people didn't think that there was supposed to be a definite conclusion to the Gita. And even if there were such a conclusion, that didn't mean they were supposed to arrange their life around it. The Gita was a spiritual book and you didn't have to follow it. One young man approached the Swami asking, "What book will you lecture from next week? Will you be teaching the Tibetan Book of the Dead?" As if Prabhupada would teach spirituality like a college survey course in world religions. "Everything is there in Bhagavad Gita," Prabhupada replied. "We could study one verse for 3 months." And there were other questions. What about Kamo? What is his philosophy? Prabhupada would ask. He says everything is absurd and only the philosophical question is whether to commit suicide. That means everything is absurd for him. The material world is absurd, but there is a spiritual world beyond this one. That means he does not know the soul. The soul cannot be killed. Adherents of various thinkers approached him. What about Nietzsche? What Kafka, Timothy Leary, Bob Dylan? Prabhupada would ask what their philosophy was, and the particular follower would have to explain and defend his favorite intellectual hero. They're all mental speculators, Prabhupada would say. Here in this material world, we are all conditioned souls. Your knowledge is imperfect. Your senses are blunt. What good is your opinion? We have to hear from the perfect authority, Krishna. Do you mean to say that none of the great thinkers are God conscious? A boy asked. Their sincerity is their God consciousness. But if we want perfect knowledge of God, then we have to consult Shastra. Often there were challenges, but under the Swami's stare and hard logic, the challenger would usually trail off into thoughtful silence. Is the spiritual knowledge of China advanced? Prabhupada would sometimes answer simply by making a sour face. Well, I am a follower of Vedanta myself. Do you know what Vedanta means? What is the first aphorism of the Vedanta Sutra? Do you know? No, Then how can you speak of Vedanta? Vedescha sarvair aham eva vedya. Krishna says that he is the goal of Vedanta. So if you are a Vedantist, then you must become Krishna conscious. What about the Buddha? Do you follow him? No. No, you just talk. Why don't you follow? Follow Krishna, follow Christ, follow Buddha, but don't just talk. This sounds the same as Christianity. How is it any different? It is the same, love of God. But who is a Christian? Who follows? The Bible teaches, thou shalt not kill. But all over the world, Christians are expert in killing. Do you know that? I believe the Christians say that Jesus Christ died for our sins. So why are you still sinning? Although Prabhupada was a stranger to America, they were strangers to absolute knowledge. Whenever anyone would come to see him, he wouldn't waste time. He talked philosophy, reason, and argument. He constantly argued against atheism and impersonalism. He spoke strongly to prove the existence of God and the universality of Krishna consciousness. He talked often and vigorously, day and night, meeting all kinds of questions and philosophies. He would listen also, and he heard a wide range of local testimonies. He heard the dissatisfaction of young Americans with the war and with American society. One boy told him he didn't want to get married because he couldn't find a chaste girl. It was better to go with prostitutes. Another confided that his mother had planned to abort him, but at the last moment, his grandmother had convinced her not to. He heard from homosexuals. Someone told him that a set of New Yorkers considered it chic to eat the flesh of aborted babies. And in every case, he told them the truth. He talked with Marxists and explained that although Marx says that everything is the property of the state, the fact is that everything is the property of God. Only spiritual communism, which puts God in the center, can actually be successful. He discounted the LSD visions as hallucinations and explained how God can be seen factually and what God looks like. Although these one-time visitors came and went away, a few new friends began to stay on, watching the Swami deal with different guests. They began to appreciate the Swami's arguments, his concern for people, and his devotion to Krishna. He seemed actually to know how to help people, and he invariably offered them Krishna consciousness as much as they could take, as a solution to their problems. A few began to take the Swami's message to heart. So I'll just stop there. Prabhupada ki jai. We'll start with invocation prayers for today. Om Ajnanati Mirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamadam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। नमो ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति विष्णव माधव स्वामिन् इति नाम्ने। गुरुं गौरं गिरिश्रेष्ठं यो विश्रम्भेन सेवते माधवं तुलसी रामकृष्ण कीर्तिकरं स्तुवे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लङ्घायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीगुरुं दीनतारणं। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। So we begin with first thanking Srila Prabhupada for his greatest contribution, his books, without which I couldn't prepare or speak anything today. So big gratitude to Srila Prabhupada. So today we're reading from Canto 4, Chapter 25, verse 21. So before I begin, I'd like to, of course, thank everyone for giving me this opportunity to speak today. I'm most unqualified, so I'm just going to try and share my realizations with you all for my own purification. So please bless me that I might be able to convey something properly. So just open the verse. पंचशीर्षाहिना गुप्तां प्रतिहारेण सर्वतः अन्वेषमाणां वृषभम् अप्रौढां कामरूपिणीम्। पंचशीर्षाहिना गुप्तां प्रतिहारेण सर्वतः अन्वेषमाणां वृषभम् अप्रौढां कामरूपिणीम्। पंचशीर्षाहिना गुप्तां प्रतिहारेण सर्वतः अन्वेषमाणां वृषभम् अप्रौढां कामरूपिणीम्। Would anyone like to try?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Panchashishmena Guptam Pratiharena Sarvata Anveshanam Rishabam Aparudam Kamarupinim. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I am also trying. Panchashirshahina Guptam Pratiharena Sarvataha Anneshamanam Rishabam Aprouram Kamarupinim. Hare Krishna.
Mataji.
Yes, yes, Mataji.
पंचशीर्षाहिना गुप्तां प्रतिहारेण सर्वतः अन्वेषमाणं ऋषभम् अप्रौढां कामरूपिणीम्. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I'll try.
Yes, please. Thank you, Prabhu.
Panchashirshahina Guptam Pratiharena Sarvatah Anneshamanam Rishabham Aprodham Kamarupinim. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I am also trying.
Yes, please. Yes, Mataji.
Panchashirshahina Guptam Pratiharena Sarvataha Annashena Manam Rishabham Aprudham Kamarupinam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Mataji. Should we move on to the synonyms? Would anyone like to read it? Or?
Yes, Mataji, I can read.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu.
Pancha, 5, Shirsha, heads, Ahina, by a snake, Guptam, protected, Pratiharena, by a bodyguard, Sarvataha, all around, Anveshamanam, one who is searching after, Rishabham, a husband, Aprudham, not very old, Kamo, Rupinim, very attractive to fulfill lasting desires. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Anyone for the translation and purport?
Hare Krishna.
Okay,
Yeah.
please
Yes, please. Carry on.
The woman was protected on all sides by a 5-hooded snake. She was very beautiful and young. and she appeared very anxious to find a suitable husband. Hare Krishna. So you can continue, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The
Yeah.
vital force of a living entity includes the 5 kinds of air working within the body, which are known as prana, apana, vayana, samana, and udana. The vital force is compared to a serpent because a serpent can live by simply drinking air. The vital force carried by the air is described as the pratihara or the bodyguard. Without the vital force, one cannot live for a moment. Indeed, all the senses are working under the protection of the vital force. The woman who represents intelligence was searching after a husband. This indicates that intelligence cannot act without consciousness. A beautiful woman is useless unless protected by the proper husband. Intelligence must always be very fresh. Therefore, the word Aprabhudam, the very young, is used here. Material enjoyment means utilizing the intelligence for the sake of Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, Shabda, and Sparsha, or form, taste, smell, sound, and touch. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. So today we are continuing. I'll just read the translation again. The woman was protected on all sides by a 5-hooded snake. She was very beautiful and young, and she appeared very anxious to find a suitable husband. So we are continuing on from yesterday, where we were introduced to this woman who was representing intelligence. So we are given some more information here that this woman or this intelligence was protected by a 5-hooded snake. The 5-hooded snake represents the life heirs that Prabhupada has described here. And that without the life air, so without consciousness, intelligence cannot survive or cannot remain. And then further on, the second paragraph, Prabhupada explains that intelligence cannot be by itself. So it needs guidance from a strong protector, or a strong, in this case, he said, it's a woman with a proper husband. So intelligence, and also second point he says is intelligence must be very fresh. It must be very young and must be protected by consciousness. And we've seen yesterday, Mataji described very nicely about how material enjoyment. So when intelligence is used for material enjoyment, then that is material intelligence. And we are going to see today a little bit more about this intelligence and how it needs protection and how it can remain very young. So that's what we're going to see today. Back to where we were. So in the Bhagavatam, just to give some context to it, so where we are currently in the Bhagavatam. So just, so we understand that Srimad Bhagavatam is a narration of the Lord's pastimes. It was made, the narration was, the initial speaker was Shukadev Goswami, and he spoke it to Maharaj Parikshit for his deliverance. So Srimad Bhagavatam, it was by listening to Srimad Bhagavatam, King Parikshit attained success, and simply by speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadev Goswami attained perfection as well. So Srimad Bhagavatam is actually, it provides nourishment to the soul. So we as Jivatmas, we are like King Parikshit, we also want to attain perfection. And when we study the Bhagavatam, we get nourished. Just like when a mother feeds a child, the child feels nourishment from the food that the child is eating, but the child also gets nourishment from the love that is coming with the food, the mother's love. So similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam, she's feeding us a lot of information, but at the same time, every word and every syllable is giving us a little dose of Krishna Prem. And that is what is going to help us, when we read and we hear and we speak Srimad Bhagavatam, we get purified and get closer and closer to our goal, which is going back to Krishna. So that is where we are in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sometimes it's important to see where we are, because we might get lost in the wood for the trees. We might forget where, what the whole purpose is when we read all these things, description about men and women and all these things. So in specifically now in this particular story, we are in Canto 4, which we are reading about the descendants of Swayambhuva Manu, King Uttanapad. Then we dwelt a lot about on the story of Dhruva Maharaj, we came down, his descendants, through Maharaj Anga, the evil Maharaj Vena, and then his mystically created son, Prithu Maharaj. Again, on Prithu Maharaj, we dwelt quite a lot. And now we have moved on from Prithu Maharaj and we've come to his grandson, who is named King Prachina Barhi or King Barhishat. Now, King Bharishat, we've heard yesterday also Mataji described how he was very addicted to performing Karmakandi Yajnas. So he was doing a good thing, but there can be something like too much of a good thing. So he was so engrossed in performing Yajnas that before one Yajna was over, he had already started preparations for the next Yajna. And he, while he's doing these Yajnas, he's giving his sons, he had 10 sons named Prachetas, and he instructed the Prachetas that they must produce progeny for the continuation of the dynasty. But the Prachetas, being very intelligent and noble, they said the first step is we have to get some spiritual enlightenment first. So we have to practice austerities. And we know the story of how when they go off to perform austerities, they meet by providence, they meet Lord Shiva, who gives them the great Rudra Gita, which they use and which they help, with the help of which they meditate in the water for 10,000 years. While they are gone, now this is where we are in the story, while they are gone for their austerities, King Prachina Barhi is very, very fortunate. He gets Narad Muni kindly shows compassion on him and he visits him. And he sees at once that this king is doing great work, but it's not going to lead to his perfection. So he very compassionately and in a very suitable way, we heard from previous speakers how he was a perfect preacher. He knew how to instruct Maharaj Prachina Barhi by giving him an analogy of King Puranjana. So we are now in the story of King Puranjana, where King Puranjana is basically representing the soul, all of us Jivatmas. We are all wandering around in this cosmic, in this material world, all over the cosmos in different bodies, and finally we chance upon a human body in the land of Bharatvarsha. And there in this Pura, we find we are now where the soul has come across intelligence in the form of a woman, and now we're going to see how this intelligence is very important in the soul's journey back home to Godhead. But what should be the characteristics of this intelligence? That's what we're going to focus on today. So let's first see what is intelligence. So we know this shloka from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 4. Bhumir apo nalo vayuh kammano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakritir ashtada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, all together, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. So we understand that intelligence is one of the 8 energies of the Lord. And let's just look at a picture here of the soul. We are the soul right in the center. We've got the subtle body, which is the mind, intelligence, and the false ego covering the soul. And then the gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, the other 5, that's the gross elements that are covering the subtle elements. So the soul is right in between. Another way we normally study this is the analogy of the chariot. So we as the gross body, which is comprised of those senses, the 5 action senses and the 5 material information gathering senses, these are made of the material elements. So you've got the sense of taste, of touch, of smell, of hearing, and of sight. And the action senses, all these, the 10 senses are the horses that pull the chariot. And the manas, or the mind, is supposed to be the reins that are, that's controlling that's holding together the senses. And then we've got buddhi, the intellect over here, which is our intelligence. So to say, what we're talking about today, that's intellect. This intellect is holding the reins. Is supposed to hold the mind and the horses, and take the chariot of this body, in which the Atma or the soul is a passenger. Now, if everything is right, then this passenger, if he's strong, he will tell the intellect, the buddhi, where he wants to go, and the buddhi will control the mind, will hold the reins of the mind, which will control the senses, and then the body will go towards its destination, which is going back home, back to Godhead. But if this Atma is weak, suppose it's not strong, then just imagine, for example, there's a drunk man who has gotten into a taxi late at night, and he just gets into the taxi. The taxi driver asks him, "Where do you want to go?" And he says, "I don't know." The taxi driver says, "Okay, what is your address? Where is your home? I can take you there. Where do you want to go?" And again, the man says, "I don't know." So where is the taxi driver going to take him? Taxi driver needs some instructions where to go. So in this case, if we look at this analogy, then if the Atma doesn't know where it wants to go, it's weak. It doesn't, all its abilities are completely conditioned. It's not able to see, doesn't have any vision. Then the buddhi will have to go where the horses, the senses drag it. The body basically goes wherever the horses, the senses drag it. Now, how do we make this Atma strong? The strength of the Atma comes from the superior source, which is the Paramatma, or in this case, Krishna. So Krishna, as a super soul, he is the powerhouse, you can say, and the chariot of this body via the Atma has to be connected to this powerhouse. When it is so connected, then this Atma derives its power from the super soul, and then the Atma is very strong, and it can protect the intelligence and can protect and take the chariot towards its goal. So that was what is the intelligence and how important the intelligence is in this whole scheme of things. Now, there are different ways that one can measure intelligence. The very conventional method is the intellectual quotient or the IQ. So conventionally, we measure intelligence by IQ, intellectual quotient. But besides this, we understand now, at least theoretically, the general people have come to understand that just by IQ, we cannot really make it. It's not enough to actually get us any success in life. Forget spiritual success, even material success cannot be determined only by intellectual quotient. So the second quotient or the second measurement that came about is emotional quotient. So emotional quotient, it measures the emotional intelligence or self-awareness and emotional self-control. So somebody who is able to control his senses, control his emotions, and respond in an appropriate way to the circumstances around him, he's said to have a good emotional quotient. But then above that is the spiritual quotient. Now, spiritual quotient, there are many subcategories to it that I could find. One of them is called the social quotient, another the adversity quotient, and the cognitive quotient. And there are many more perhaps, but I could broadly put them all together under what's called the spiritual quotient. So let's look at what's this social quotient. Social quotient determines how we are able to culturally fit and work in society and how socially aware we are. So it determines the ability of how we relate to people, how we network with people, and how we connect and work with people to attain a certain outcome. Similarly, so that is obviously, when we look at this, how can we actually interact and relate to people without having a spiritual component to it? We'll come to that in a minute, but let's look at the second quotient, the adversity quotient. So the adversity quotient is the ability to face and overcome adverse situations. Now, all of us in every life, in everyone's life, there is adversity. There are so many different kinds of adversities that one can face. It can be via relationships, a relationship breakdown. So I was listening to Keshav Maharaj's class, and he talks about life quakes. So in all our lives, in everyone's life, each and everyone's life, there will be different life quakes. Like earthquakes, they can completely shake the person up. So when we go through these adversities, how are we able to sense through the situation and still come out sane, overcome different adversities? So that's the adversity quotient, your ability to deal with adversities and to come out on top. And finally, we have the cognitive quotient. This is very important. Cognitive quotient means you may have the intellect, you may have the ability to solve problems, but what do you do with that? what do you do with the result of your solution? How do you act in this world in a way that's useful to society? So how do you utilize your intelligence? That's called the cognitive quotient. Now, I could see that these other quotients are all, we can say, part of the spiritual quotient, because the spiritual quotient, how that is defined is, it says it's a sign of a high spiritual quotient includes an ability to think out of the box, to be humble, and to access the energies that come from something beyond the ego, beyond just me and my day-to-day concerns, to be able to see things from a very high perspective or a very deep level. So the spiritual quotient, one can actually tap into the spiritual quotient or actually be spiritually developed only if we're able to see things from a different perspective, from the everyday mundane perspective of general people. So somebody who's got a spiritual quotient will be able to see that, okay, we are part of a bigger whole, that what our everyday concerns are just very, very small compared to the big picture that is there. We are just a small, minute cog in the wheel of the big machinery that is set into motion by some supernatural or higher being or a higher divine being. So once you have that kind of perspective, a very high perspective, then we are able to deal with people in an appropriate way. We are able to deal with adversities in an appropriate way. We are able to see that it's all part of something bigger, and that this is just a very, very small thing, and I shouldn't get into the everyday dog fights with people for no reason, which is not leading to anything. Similarly, you will understand that when you have the intellectual ability to solve problems, you will understand how to use that knowledge to actually work sensibly in this world. So these quotients are all interrelated. So when you have only IQ, you're considered imbalanced. You have to have EQ and SQ also to be able to function sensibly in this world, just even on mundane level. Now, let's see. So now that we know that we need to have IQ, SQ, and EQ, so how do we know that somebody's intelligence is fortified by spirituality? And how do we know that somebody's intelligence is not fortified by spirituality? Because only when we see things around us, if we're able to make sense of it, then we'll be able to see how to apply it in our lives. So I was just looking at some ways to see what is fortified and what is unfortified intelligence. So first, let's look at our activity. A person with fortified intelligence fortified by spiritual knowledge, is going to practice spirituality. They're going to have spiritual practices every day. We know from the Chaturshloki, Buddha Bhava Samanvitaha. So what happens is, a person that's intelligent will have spiritual practices as component of his life. The third verse of the Chaturshloki says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. What is he saying? Krishna is saying, to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So Krishna gives the intelligence or the knowledge from within to somebody who is devoted to serving him with love, somebody who has devotional service as his everyday practice. Then he will give the understanding or the intelligence from within. What does a person, on the other hand, with unfortified intelligence, what are his activities like? They are sense gratificatory. So they will just do whimsically whatever they want to gratify their senses. Let's look at the mental state of a person with fortified intelligence. A person with fortified intelligence will show signs of surrender, that he is calm, peaceful, serene in all circumstances. Let's look at this verse from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 19. It says, Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate Vasudeva sarvam iti sa mahatma sudurlabha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge, or one who is actually intelligent, he surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. So a person with fortified intelligence will show signs of surrender, which is, what is a sign of surrender? Is that these people are calm in all circumstances. Whereas a person with unfortified intelligence, they will get agitated. So you will see sometimes they will be so disturbed, so angry and disturbed. Other times they're lamenting and so depressed. And other times they're jubilant. If India won the match, suddenly there's so much of fireworks and excitement all over the place. If India loses the match, then they're all despondent, as if something of very vital for them is lost. So this up and down, the pendulum swinging this way and that way, you'll find in a person of unfortified intelligence. And so much so that they will be almost, it's debilitating, like they cannot function. You know, they just swinging from one side to the other in their mental condition. Now let's look at sign of orientation. What can you see? Person with fortified intelligence, you will see that they have an orientation to seva or service. So I was just looking at this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Is the verse Krishna is speaking to the wives of the Brahmanas who have come to offer him food. So he says, certainly expert personalities who can see their own true interest render unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service directly unto me, for I am most dear to the soul. So if you see expert personalities, he's referring to those who are very intelligent or those who are very smart. They can see their own true interest is to render unmotivated and uninterrupted devotional service to Krishna. And so you'll see that there's an orientation. Every moment they're thinking of how to serve, how to be engaged in seva. Whereas a person with unfortified intelligence, it's many branch, the orientation, they don't know what to do. Today they feel like, oh, I should enjoy everyone's saying we should enjoy, so I should enjoy. Tomorrow they're saying I should work hard at my job because I should, they're all over the place. Sometimes doing this, sometimes doing that. They're not aligned in one particular worldview or one particular orientation. So you will see people who are fortified intelligence are engaged in seva, and the other people are many branch, not knowing what to do. Similarly, now the mood of a person of fortified intelligence, normally a mood will be of humility, because such a person who's got a spiritual understanding will have a big vision, a broad vision, and they know that they're just a tiny, tiny cog in the wheel. Of course, they still have self-esteem because they know that they are also a very important cog in the wheel, because they are Krishna's eternal part and parcel. But there's a sense of humility because they know they're very small and Krishna is very big and his plans are very, very big. Whereas a person with unfortified intelligence, he will show signs of pride. I, me, myself, everything is revolving around me, and there won't be any sense of humility in such a person. So these are broadly the ways to identify fortified intelligence and unfortified intelligence. Now, even from the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna himself says, when in the 13th chapter, when he's describing what is knowledge or what is, what comprises intelligence, he talks about these. I won't go through each of these. I won't read the shloka, but I will read the translation. Or if anyone would like to volunteer to read the translation for me, please?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Heartlessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the object of self-gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age and disease, detachment, free from entanglement with children, wife, home and the rest. Even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All this I declare to be the knowledge, and beside this, whatever here may be is ignorance. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. So here we see humility, non-violence, simplicity, all these different things Krishna has spoken. These comprise knowledge. Everything else is ignorance, he says. So now we'll just look at some examples and just see if we can classify based on what we've understood of what is fortified intelligence, what is not. Let's just see what these different examples teach us. So Arjuna on the battlefield in the Mahabharata, we know from Bhagavad Gita, how he breaks down when he goes between the two armies and sees them. So I'll just read again just the translation. When the son of Kunti, Arjuna, saw all these different grades of friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion and spoke thus. Arjuna said, "My dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up. My whole body is trembling, my hair is standing on end, my bow, Gandiva, is slipping from my hand, and my skin is burning. I am now unable to stand here any longer. I am forgetting myself, and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune, O Krishna, killer of the Keshi demon." So what do we understand from this example? Would anyone like to say, what do you feel? Is Arjuna got a fortified intelligence? Or what exactly do you feel from this situation?
Hare Krishna. At the initial state, is unfortified intelligence. He doesn't know what to do.
But then he takes guidance from the superior power, that the spiritual power, that is Krishna. And then, so it's natural for everyone to have adversities in their life and to get bewildered. But then if you are seeking help from the spirit, from spirituality, from the spirit soul, from Krishna, to overcome our adversities, then I would say that Arjuna is displaying both IQ as well as EQ and SQ. He's able to empathize that, oh, when I do this, when I have this war, then obviously so many people are going to die and society is going to get disturbed. So he's able to relate, see things, a bigger picture. But when he's bewildered, he's able to take, help from Krishna, the Paramatma. For us, it'll be Paramatma, and from our spiritual guides, to see what should we do when we are bewildered. So I thought Arjuna is a very good example of having a very holistic intelligence. The second example was that of Prithu Maharaj. At the time when Indra is stealing his horse in the Ashwamedha Yajna. We've just gone through the story of Prithu Maharaj, just to jog our memories. So Prithu Maharaj, he was put in a very provocative situation. He was conducting the Ashwamedha Yajnas, 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas, and for the benefit of the citizens, of his citizens. And he had just completed the 99th. So as you know, the Ashwamedha Yajnas are very, very big events. And after great difficulty, he's completed 99 Yajnas. And just when he's going to start the 100th Yajna, suddenly Indra, the king of the demigods, is feeling very anxious and very insecure that if Prithu Maharaj completes 100 Yajnas, then he might take over my place. So because he's feeling insecure, he starts stealing the horse again and again, repeatedly. And each time he comes in the garb of a renunciate, of a sannyasi, and setting a precedent for very wrong sampradayas. So each time he steals the horse, the son of Maharaj Prithu does not kill him, but leaves him. Leaves him. But finally, then Prithu Maharaj, when he tries again, then he gets angry, and let's see what happens. Is Prithu Maharaj is described in this verse. That Prithu Maharaj was celebrated as very powerful. So Maharaj Prithu was very powerful, able to kill Indra if he wanted. Immediately took up his bow and arrows and prepared to kill Indra himself, because Indra had introduced such irregular sannyasa orders. So what do we feel about this? He was willing to kill Prithu Maharaj when he was willing to kill Indra when he was provoked. Would anyone like to say what they feel about this episode? So what I gathered was that after he prepares to kill Indra, Lord Brahma himself appears there and gives him some good advice, saying, don't let it be, let him go. It's okay if you don't complete 100 sacrifices. You've already got devotional service, you've got the highest. Why do you want to worry about completing the 100th? Let it be. Indra, he's got a position which he needs to fulfill at the moment. If you kill him, it will create disturbance. So let him go. And Prithu Maharaj immediately he agrees. Immediately he follows Brahma's instructions. And he not only stops performing, continuing with the 100th sacrifice, but he also completely, with his heart, forgives Indra and does not harbor any ill feeling towards him. So again, to me, this example, shows me that he's also very, displaying very high level of intelligence, intellectual, because he's powerful, he's capable of killing Indra. But should he do it? He's using his cognitive intelligence and saying, no, I should not. He's using his emotional intelligence, saying, no, it is going to cause disturbance. I should follow what the superior is telling me. And he doesn't harbor any ill will. So he was doing the sacrifice very selflessly. You can see that. And then I got another example from Chaitanya Charitamrita, or from Chaitanya Bhagavat actually, of Devanand Pandit, who was a very great scholar of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we see that, he was reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam professionally, but with an impersonal bent of mind, not with full understanding. And once he offends Srivas Thakur, when Srivas Thakur hears his narration of the Bhagavatam, he gets tears in his eyes. And the students of Devanand Pandit, they drive him away from there. And Devanand Pandit doesn't say anything. Now, because of this offense to Srivas Pandit, Srivas Thakur, Mahaprabhu does not give him his mercy. Later on, Devanand Pandit, he assists, or he helps Vakreshwar Pandit, another great devotee, when he's performing Sankirtan Yajna. And because of giving him assistance, Devanand Pandit gets the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we see that his then heart is transformed, and he's able to, when he then recites Srimad Bhagavatam, it is with the right attitude, with the right feeling, the impersonal understanding, and he gets that knowledge. So again, here we see that just book knowledge or academic knowledge by itself is not intelligence. Intelligence you have to have so many other things: emotional quotient, how to deal with people. You should have Vaishnava etiquette and courtesy, and that gives us more spiritual connection, and that will help us, progress spiritually and holistically. And then looking at all these, when you talk about intelligence, automatically, when you look at the modern day, we see modern day examples of intelligence. The most common example we can think of is the scientists. So the scientists normally are attributed with very high intellectual quotient. They've got a very high intellect, high on their IQ. But we don't know how they are in terms of their EQ and their SQ. Their emotional quotient and their spiritual quotient sometimes is lacking. So I was just reading the story of this great scientist named Oppenheimer, who was a great theoretical scientist during World War II. He was such a great, brilliant scientist. He was nominated thrice for the Nobel Prize. And he made many big contributions to the field of science and physics, particularly. He is known as the father of the atomic bomb. So because of him, he was the director of the place where they generated this atomic bomb for the first time, and they bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which ended the World War II. So this person, he was so brilliant. He also he was an American. He learned Sanskrit, and he's read the Bhagavad Gita by himself. And he had a great appreciation for Bhagavad Gita, but as a philosophical or on an intellectual level. So even though he had that, still that didn't deter him from, going on to perform an Ugra Karma of preparing the atomic bomb and using it and letting it be used. So again, we can't comment on him particularly or any particular scientist, but it's for us to see when we see IQ, it is not enough by itself to make sure that, that the person, to say that the person actually is very intelligent. Now let's look at the current situation also. We see that IQ or intellectual quotient is increasing in every decade. So every decade we see that people are more intellectually able and in that sense intelligent. And we're now at a place where the intellect or people's the intellect in general of human kind is at a pinnacle. So so many things have been discovered over the last 50, 100 years. We see computers. So initially, previously people used to do all the calculations and computing and data analysis in their minds, in their heads, on paper. Then the computers came and life became easy, and the function of the mind to calculate, to compute, to think, all these was delegated to the computers. Then another big development was cloning, cloning of bodies, cloning of animals. Dolly the sheep was cloned just in the laboratory by scientific advancement. And now finally we come to the state where human beings' intelligence has become so much that they are not only talking about intelligence on the human level. They're saying, okay, we can give intelligence to just matter, to dull matter is able to become intelligent by this artificial intelligence. We see it all around us nowadays. It's become common. Most offices, we have bots running, performing various functions. Then we have Chat GPT that is famous. Many people are using it. This artificial intelligence basically is delegating the power of even deciding, decision making and judgment to machines. And then we know, we can also read there are many dangers of artificial intelligence we see. So this is intelligence devoid of consciousness. And this artificial intelligence, many dangers that they're talking about, very commonly they talk about that because of artificial intelligence, many jobs will be lost, that privacy will be taken away because through AI, people's minds can be read, people's minds can be influenced. So there's no privacy anymore. Then because of AI, creativity will be lost because many creative things like pictures, paintings, music, all of this can be done by AI. You don't need a human creative mind to do it. So humankind's creativity will be lost. Then they're talking about how many other things. But I felt that the biggest danger of AI is that it is not connected to the spirit anymore. It is not connected to any spiritual source. And so by itself, it is unfortified or unprotected intelligence. And this reminded me of the story of Vrikasura from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 88, where Vrikasura is an asura who you can say was intelligent and foolish. So he was so intelligent that he asked Narada Muni, who is the god I can pray to who will get satisfied very easily? Narada Muni tells him, you can go to Mahadev. And by the grace of Lord Shiva, he gets the power to that whosoever head he places his hand on, that person's head will split and that person will die. And so he goes to test it on Lord Shiva himself, and Lord Shiva flees for his life. And then Krishna or Lord Vishnu comes to the rescue and he bewilders Vrikasura to say, why don't you place your hand on your own head? And by doing that, Vrikasura actually kills himself. And it seems to me very similar that humankind is heading towards something very similar by discovering all these things. Now, is it all doom and gloom? That's the question. So obviously it cannot be doom and gloom as long as the devotees are there, as long as we have the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam with us, it cannot be doom and gloom. So what we have to do is we have to fortify our intelligence. How do we fortify our intelligence? By through our sadhana bhakti. So we heard yesterday even Mataji mentioned how to fortify our intelligence. So let's just go through a few things. One is the holy name of the Lord. So Sankirtan and Japa. We know that the holy name is very, very powerful and it can purify our intelligence, and we must chant regularly. So it's not just chanting. So I was again listening to Keshav Maharaj's class and he talked about action, attention and intention. So it's just like, we say Krishna is our best friend. He's our best friend forever, BFF. So how will it feel if we have a friend who does not have any time for us, who's so busy? Weekdays they're busy, weekends they're busy, all the time they're busy doing their own thing. No time for us. Then what kind of a BFF is that? So if we are really a BFF, if Krishna is really our best friend, then not only will we take time, the best time of our day for him, but we will also give all our attention and we'll be present there, and we'll also feel happy and joyful when we are engaging with him through his holy name. And then worship of the deity, this is again very, very powerful. When we worship the deity, it helps us purify and fortify our intelligence. And study of scriptures, Mataji mentioned yesterday, to purify our intelligence, we read the scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita, and many others. And then association of devotees. So devotees are actually our gateway, our path going back to Godhead. So we have to love and cherish all devotees because they are very, very precious for our progress. And then visiting the dhams. So it's said the dhams are where there's condensed or intense devotion. So when we visit these dhams, some of that intensity and that pure devotion rubs off on us. In fact, all these dhams are where the air and the water and the soil has been touched by the bodies of great souls, great devotees from before. And so it's very, very powerful to visit the dhams. Similarly, even our temple. So you know how dhams are the Leela Sthali, then the temple is the Sevasthali. This is where Krishna is served most with him and the center. And so when we visit the temple, it's very, very powerful for us, for our purification and to fortify our intelligence. And then, of course, preaching. Once we do all this, we're overflowing with Krishna in us, then we have to preach. It naturally comes. We will tell others about Krishna. When we've benefited, we want everyone to benefit. And of course, our diet must be prasadam only. That will help us purify our intelligence. There's a little verse that I read about prasadam. So I will just read that. It says, Ahara shuddhav sattva shuddhav dhruva smiti labdhe sarva granthinam vipramokshaha. By pure food, one attains pure mind. By pure mind, the intelligence becomes fixed. With good intelligence, one is freed from all obstacles. This is from the Chandogya Upanishad, 7.26.2. So with that, I'd like to stop today's presentation. If there's any questions or comments, please feel free. If there's any corrections, please feel free to share. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandot Pranam.
Dandot Pranam Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Beautiful narration of this text. You have come up with such a beautiful narration how intelligence works from this text, and you have picked up so many points with a very clear understanding to make us understand that, yeah, this is the way how intelligence works. And you have given so much information how these three things works, but what is our understanding? That is IQ, EQ, and SQ, and what are their importance in our life and in our understanding. So the most important thing is this cognitive questions, which is actually the real knowledge, searching knowledge. As Prabhupada said, Brahma Jigyasa, that source of cognitive question is most important, and that is the base of our spiritual life. So all the activities you mentioned, that the science, the unfortified intelligence and fortified, with the good examples of Arjun and then Pitu Maharaj, it shows us how important is the control of intelligence. And that Bhagavad Gita 13:8-12 gives us the whole 20 items of intelligence, and that gives us the right guide to understand the importance of intelligence. It should be in the right way directed, otherwise it can make havoc. As we know how this atomic bomb story you talked about, scientist, he was also a reader of Bhagavad Gita, but he has utilized his intelligence in the form of not SQ, IQ, SQ, but not this, sorry, IQ, EQ, but not the SQ. So that SQ is missing, and that is what makes the world suffering. And the intelligence, other things you mentioned about now how Srila Prabhupada has given the platform to understand this SQ in a right perspective, and he has given the chart so that we don't deviate from the SQ, and we can avoid an effect of AI, which is now flourishing all over. The days will come when people will stop thinking and the disease will go on, and people will be mad within a minute because they don't have the intelligence to flourish their knowledge, and that will come out with the very, very difficult time. But we are very fortunate. Srila Prabhupada has given us the platform so that we keep engage ourselves throughout the day with the activities towards the Lord, and that will keep us safe from this effect of AI, which is flourishing nowadays. Thank you so much for enlightening such a beautiful explanation and narratives. Thank you so much once again. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. There's no further questions or comments. Can we end today?
Yeah, it looks like no.
Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam
पावनेभ्यो
पतितानां
वैष्णवेभ्यो
पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
जय
कृष्ण
प्रभुपाद की जय देश के धर्मप्रभु की
जय।
जय
All praise to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण।